now it's time to actually make this into a form that works with our project, right? So if you actually had method equals to get and action equaling to some action, so let's just say search, then you might change the name down here to Q, because that's oftentimes what the query would be for a name. You might do this. So if I save that and refresh in here, I'll do a new search, hit enter, or hit search. It's not actually running. Why isn't it running? So we do search. So by default, it is not actually submitting the form. So instead of putting method in action, we can get rid of that and instead do ng submit. And then we want to have some sort of function or method in here that's going to handle that. So we'll just do submit search. And you can pass through the event, so the event of it actually being searched. And then we can also pass in something else. But for now, I'm just going to pass in the event. And since I have this ng submit, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, bring it into my component, and make it in as a new function. Of course, we notice that there's a parameter for event, so we can console log event. So we save this, and I'll do new search, hit search. Notice that an event comes through, and it's actually loading what happened, right? Default prevented, no, or excuse me, true, right? So by default, it is preventing the default. So since we've got this, I do want to actually submit the value that's coming through this text, right? So I would say the best way to do it is to give it a model itself. So we'll say search form equals to ngForm. Okay. And this search form, we can actually pass through inside of the submit search method that we defined. So hashtag search form is this thing that we're passing here. If I called it ABC form, I would pass in ABC form. Okay. So now that I've got that, I go back into my component, and then I'll just say form data, and we can console log form data. I'm actually going to unconsole log our data from the home page, so we don't see that as well. Refresh in here. Now it's showing nothing. Do new search, hit enter, and I've got an event here, and I've got an ngForm submitted. Now, if I didn't set it to ngForm, so if I got rid of that, saved it, and did new search, it just says form component. So it's actually just getting the HTML form itself, the actual HTML form. It's not getting anything else. So let's bring it back to being ngForm. All right. And then coming back into our component, I can do form data.value, hit enter, refresh, and I'll do new item search, hit enter, and there we go. We've got our new item search here. Cool. So that's actually how we can use form data. Now, of course, if you had this works for any sort of form. It's not just this search form. We're just using the search form to have some practicality to it. But if you were using HTTP, you would do HTTP post, some endpoint, and then some data, right? So this.http post, then you'd be passing that data, and the data that you'd be getting is right here, form.value. In this case, we have our name of the input, which is Q, and then the value of that input. What if I put in some hidden inputs in here? So I'll just do that. Input type equals to hidden. We'll say name equals to loc, and I'll just do value equals to Newport Beach. That's where I am. We save it. And I'll do a new search here, hit search. I still get this value of Q. So we take a look, and the reason for this is we don't have a model that's set up to this. So just like we did down here, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and change it to being search location. So that's now our model. So if I save that now and do a search, loc comes through, so the name of it comes through. So we'll say location, we'll leave it as location. So we want to set a default value. We did set one here, but I can get rid of that now. And instead do it in our component, search location equals to Newport Beach. In fact, we can do that with the search query as well. New search. Come back, new search is in there. I hit search, location's in there. Okay, that's a cool start, but I'm gonna get rid of that original search query. But what I will do is show you change. So I'm gonna change this location when I type here. And I'll just go change equals to, well, some sort of method. So I'll just say search ing parentheses or search typing or whatever, search change, search query change, let's call it that. Come back into our component, search query change, and we'll do this dot search location equals to California. We'll save that, refresh, and we'll do new search, hit enter. Notice the location has changed. So this is how it's binding to that data, right? So we've got that bind still happening, and it's actually working off of this search location. Okay, so what if I actually did just search location, just the hashtag? I'll get rid of that model, save that, refresh, and I'll do new search, and it goes away, right? So that's not actually binding it to a model. There are examples of that working in different contexts, but in this case, we want to bind it to the model, so then I can actually change it. So new search, hit enter, and there we go. Perfect. Okay, so that's it for how the form actually works. And again, using a hidden input or any sort of input, you are likely going to set it up to a model. So there is possibly one other thing that you could do, which we're not going to cover, but basically you can set up the search form itself to have all those default values to where it's just slightly different. But again, we're not going to cover that right now. That's getting into more advanced forms themselves. So I do encourage you to check out the ngForm, and that is ngForm right here. I do encourage you to check this out to see how this is done and what you might consider changing or trying out on this one. As you see, we've got a few other things on here that are just different. All right, so if you have any questions on what we did here, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.